It's 7:37. You're listening to Daybreak on CBC Radio 1. It's almost time to head to the polls. Candidates have just a few days left to make their case to voters. And so far, at times, it's been a pretty tough road, complete with violent demonstrations at campaign stops, racist and misogynistic insults hurled, and even someone throwing gravel at the Prime Minister. Fareed Khan has been following the campaign closely. He's the founder of Canadians United Against Hate, and he joins me now to share his thoughts. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
All right. In terms of the tone and the rhetoric, what has concerned you as you've watched this election campaign play out and unfold?
Well, I think in terms of the tone, we're seeing a campaign unlike anything that we've seen before. We've had demonstrations happening, Trudeau, anti-liberal demonstrations, where people have been hurling racist and misogynistic obscenities, where there's been a physical assault. You mentioned gravel being thrown at the Prime Minister, and where we've seen people expressing a sense of anger and rage that we've never seen in Canadian elections before. And to me, it's very reminiscent of the sort of thing that we saw in the United States during the presidential election with Donald Trump.
Right, yeah. You have compared the People's Party of Canada leader to Donald Trump. What are some of the parallels that you're seeing there that's causing you to make this comparison here?
Well, he's embraced the far right and white supremacist. He's anti-immigrant, anti-refugee. He's anti-science. He has embraced the anti-vaxxers. He himself refuses to get vaccinated, and he has basically created a environment at his political rallies that are basically saying the same sorts of things that Donald Trump did, that, the system is corrupt, that there needs to be a revolution to basically break the system. He quoted John F. Kennedy in one of his speeches, which I find so ironic, that when legal protest becomes impossible, then revolution becomes inevitable, or words to that effect. And that is a very dangerous thing to say. I think that all Canadians need to be concerned.
Now, according to the CBC poll tracker, Bernier is polling at just over 6% in popularity. He is polling below the Bloc Québécois and above the Green Party. And it's sort of a classic conundrum in covering these things where you worry about giving too much of a spotlight to fringe opinions that make up a small percentage. Do you worry about that, about giving too much oxygen to his party to be focusing on him?
Well, I personally don't, because he's already been given oxygen by the media. They're covering him, not just nationally, but locally. His candidates have been allowed to sit on platforms where they have propagated nonsense, in my view, so it's already happened. So what I am doing, I don't think I'm feeding it, but what I am trying to do is call attention to the fact is that there is a tinderbox out there, and they are a spark. And they're ready to pour gasoline onto the anger that's out there. And I think that it is a serious danger to our political culture if they get rooted in any serious way. They got 1.7% of the vote in the 2019 election. Now they're polling at about 6.3%, 6.2%. That translates, if you use the voter turnout from 2019, into approximately 1.2 million Canadians who are considering voting for that party. And I think that that is a very serious development, and it would be folly for us not to take that seriously.
Is it best for the media, in your opinion, to just not focus any attention on a fringe candidate like that?
I think it would. When you have a party that is founded in extremist ideology, when it is propagating racist, anti-refugee, anti-immigrant policies, I think to give them oxygen in the media means that you actually connect them with people who feel that way. I think it would be better if they were ignored, because then maybe they would fade away and they wouldn't have the level of support that they do.
Okay. The NDP also announced that 2 of its candidates have quit the federal election race because of anti-Semitic comments on social media that they made in the past. And the Conservatives have dropped their candidate in the Toronto riding after Islamophobic tweets surfaced. Do you think that there is a greater push for accountability from the parties in this election cycle?
Yes, there is a greater push for accountability, but I think you have to take those announcements with a grain of salt. Look at the ridings where these candidates are running, and they didn't have a hope of winning those ridings, so it makes for very good PR to say, hey, we're getting rid of these candidates because of what they've said or done currently or in the past. However, there was another candidate in the Conservatives who also was found to have said or posted inappropriate remarks, racist remarks, and yet he was allowed to stay after he made an apology. And I think in that case, he actually had a chance of winning his seat. So it's a bit of a shell game that the parties are playing, where they get rid of candidates that have no hope of winning and keep candidates who are going to win or who have the possibility of winning, even though they may have committed some sort of transgression.
Another issue that has been raised during the election campaign that connects to issues of inclusion has been around Quebec's Bill 21, which prohibits any sort of visible religious symbols in public sector jobs. Are you disappointed to see the response or lack of it, frankly, from party leaders on this?
Oh, very much so. I think that when you have a jurisdiction within your country that has put in place legislation which human rights activists, organizations, and legal scholars have said is racist and bigoted and targets certain communities, and for the national leaders of the country who are running to be prime ministers to say, well, no, we're not going to do anything about it. In the case of Mr. Singh and Mr. O'Toole, that's a Quebec jurisdictional matter. And then you have Mr. Trudeau, who said in 2019, yes, he has left the door open, but in the meantime, for 2 years, this law has been making its way through the court system, and they have not applied for intervener status. That begs the question, how committed are they to defending human rights? Each of these parties have huge sections in their platforms talking about, their commitment to defending human rights of various groups. And yet, in the case of a group in one part of this country that is being targeted, whose human rights are being violated, they have said they're going to do nothing, or they have in fact done nothing to deal with it. And I think that puts their human rights credentials under scrutiny.
At the end of the day, though, isn't this the point of voting and the power of the ballot box, where we're a country with a democracy and people get to decide what they will and won't stand for. And the most powerful way of doing that is with the vote. So even if there are candidates who are expressing views that you don't agree with, isn't that the power of voting, to be able to, make the most vocal statement by voting for or against?
Well, I mean, it depends on how far you're willing to let that go. All we have to do is look at history to see what happens when nations have extremist parties, allow extremist parties to take root, and where that goes. I think in the case of this, we have to look at what Germany has done. And under German law, there are certain types of parties that are not allowed. Parties that promote racist, hateful ideologies, neo-Nazis, they're not allowed. And I think that we should take a page out of Germany, because they put those laws in place for a very good reason, given their history. All we have to do is look at the United States and what happened with Donald Trump and what he did. He pretty much shredded the political social contract, and now you've got certain ideologues who are promoting very hateful types of ideologies, and it has become the situation in the U.S. has become one which has posing a danger to society down there. And we have to ask ourselves, is that the sort of thing we want to see happen in Canada? And if not, then we need to take action against it.
Very interesting to talk with you about this today, Fareed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Fareed Khan is the founder of Canadians United Against Hate. He joined us from Quebec.